Your pieces will now be reset.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Madam Speaker, it is my honour to rise today in this chamber to speak on behalf of my neighbours and fellow residents of Calgary Signal Hill. Others in this House have commented since the beginning of this 45th Parliament that politics is a team sport, and I, for one, would not have it any other way. The Conservative team in Calgary Signal Hill is one of the best in our country, and I'm proud to be part of that team. I'm also grateful to all of the individuals who volunteered their time and energy in the general election campaign. And I say thank you to them today. I'm thinking about Joanne Burse, an amazing volunteer in our community, who together with Cynthia Williams ran our campaign office. Adrian Smith, Stuart McConkey, and Tim Wall, our sign crew. Steve McLeod, one of the sharpest minds in politics. Barb Shaw, Changping Chow, Bob McDonald, Mark Monick, Bonnie McGuinness, Kerry Wall, Rick Harland, and others who gave hour after hour to knock on doors and do whatever needed to be done. And of course, Michael Smith, who kept it all on track and running smoothly. Jeff Sturzik and Myron Tatro were tremendously supportive as well, as were friends old and new who gave support in so many ways. These volunteers gave of themselves with no reward other than the betterment of our country. Perhaps an occasional cup of coffee or a Timbit, but I am mindful today of their commitment and contributions, and I will remain mindful of these things as I strive to represent them and all residents of Calgary Signal Hill in this House to the very best of my abilities. One does not venture into the challenging waters of politics without the solid support of family. I want to thank my partner in life, Michelle, for her rock-solid support of my long-held desire to enter federal politics. Taking on this important role means many days and nights apart, but she has never wavered in her support. My two children, Kristen and Alex, have likewise encouraged me to start a new career when others much smarter than me are retiring from theirs. They have believed in me as I have believed in them, and I love them for it. My daughter Kristen is a young scientist, presently completing her master's in biology, and Alex has recently started his career in finance. They are hardworking and passionate people, and I am so very proud of them. I also extend my thanks to Leanne for cheering me on and being a wonderful mother to our children. During the election campaign that concluded a short 5 weeks ago, I heard from many at their doorsteps of the expectation that I will be part of making our country better by working with all members of this House to obtain the best outcome for Canadians. A good idea, Mr. Speaker, is a good idea, regardless of which side of the House it arrives in. And members of this House need to focus on ensuring that the best ideas win the day. And it's working. The best ideas the Liberals have right now all came from the Conservatives. I agree with my neighbours on the need to work together, Madam Speaker, and I pledge to keep my focus on what is best for them, what is best for Canadians. Madam Speaker, Signal Hill is a shining example of the promise of Canada. In the election campaign, I met many, many proud Canadians who, because of their work in the energy industry, are living the Canadian dream. The energy industry is not just an employer, it is a means of advancement for families. While the Canadian energy sector is the lifeblood of my community, many are worried about their future under a Liberal government that tells us one day, not that long ago, that they're done with building pipelines, but then says that they want us to be an energy superpower the next day. For the last 10 years, Canada's energy sector has endured what my colleague from Calgary Heritage referred to a few years ago as a systemic attack by a government indifferent to the consequences of its decisions. When you consider that almost 90% of Canada's oil production comes from Alberta and Saskatchewan, it should surprise no one that these attacks have been taken as partisan bullying aimed at our western provinces. As a proud Canadian who loves this country from coast to coast to coast, that saddens me. Now, I've been in this House over the last number of days as assurances have been given that it is different now. But I am sure, Madam Speaker, that one can forgive the people of Calgary Signal Hill for being skeptical of this sudden about-face from a Liberal government that killed Energy East and Northern Gateway, that banned West Coast oil shipments by tanker, and that has put in place a regulatory framework for new project review that our energy industry tells us is utterly unworkable. And before the members opposite rise to tell us that promises have been made and all will be well, perhaps they need to be reminded of some of the promises the Liberal government has made that simply weren't kept. In 2015, Justin Trudeau promised electoral reform. That didn't happen. In 2019, the Liberals promised they would criminalize elder abuse. That didn't happen. In 2019, the Liberals promised to establish a dedicated agency for defense procurement. That didn't happen, and our forces continue to suffer today. In 2021, the Liberals said that they would create a new federal hub to help Canadian businesses and entrepreneurs take advantage of trade agreements that Canada is party to. That didn't happen. In 2021, the Liberals promised a $4.5 billion Canadian mental health transfer to the provinces. Didn't happen. In 2022, the Liberals promised they would establish a permanent Council of Economic Advisors to provide independent advice to government on long-term growth. Guess what? Didn't happen. So when the Liberal government says today, don't worry, we promise to fix it, residents of Calgary Signal Hill do worry, Madam Speaker, and don't understand why this Liberal government refuses to repeal Bill C-69, refuses to repeal Bill C-48, and refuses to scrap the production cap on oil and gas. The Minister of Natural Resources recently spoke in Calgary, Madam Speaker, a prime opportunity to walk away from these three suffocating policies. But there wasn't a word. In fact, there seems to be an aversion to saying the word pipeline out loud in the Liberal government, even with thousands of kilometres of pipelines operating in Canada this very minute, safely and responsibly taking petroleum products from production to end users. Mr. Speaker, if you know, Madam Speaker, if you know somebody with a habit of over-promising and consistently under-delivering, you eventually lose faith in them saying what they mean and meaning what they say. So today the answer is no. It is not enough to make more promises. It is not enough to say, don't worry, we will do this or we will do that. My neighbours in Signal Hill require action and results, not empty promises. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to take a moment to acknowledge the exemplary service of Ron Leipert, prior MP for Calgary Signal Hill. After serving as press secretary to the late and great Alberta Premier Peter Lougheed, Ron was elected to the Alberta Legislature in 2004. Ron served 3 premiers over 7+ years in that institution, acting successively as Minister of Education, Minister of Health and Wellness, Minister of Energy, and Minister of Finance. After time in the private sector, Ron was elected to this House with the class of 2015 and served the people of Calgary Signal Hill for just under 10 years. The former member is now focusing on his golf game full-time, and he does so with the thanks and appreciation of his friends and neighbours in the riding that we share. He's been an outstanding example of public service at its best, and the residents of Calgary Signal Hill join me in saying to Ron Leipert, thank you. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to share the contents of a letter I just received from a resident of Calgary Signal Hill. Lily writes as follows. My name is Lily. I'm 9 years old. I noticed that you won the election in my riding. Congratulations. I wanted to ask you to make good, kind, and fair decisions for us. Thank you. I think these words perfectly lay out the work ahead of this House and the expectation that all Canadians hold for us as parliamentarians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Fred de Mme Oscar Estigouche.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le mois dernier, plus de 8,5 millions de Canadiennes et Canadiens ont voté pour notre plan ambitieux pour renforcer et unifier notre économie. C'est le plus grand nombre de votes jamais obtenus par un parti lors d'une élection fédérale canadienne. Le discours du trône reflète très bien les engagements que nous avons pris durant la campagne. Ma question pour mon collègue.
The throne speech accurately reflects the commitments made during the campaign, which 8.5 Canadians voted for, a very high amount. So my question for my colleague, will he vote for the throne speech this evening, a throne speech that reflects the wishes of a majority of Canadians?
Calgary Signal Hill.
I thank the member opposite for the question. I think what's most important right now, Madam Speaker, is what this government plans to do with respect to the energy industry, which, as I've indicated and stated in this House, is the lifeblood of my community of Calgary Signal Hill. We don't need more empty promises. We need results. We need a commitment to repeal Bill C-69. We need a commitment to repeal Bill C-48. And we need a scrapping of the production cap on oil and gas. Those are the issues that are of greatest importance in my riding, Madam Speaker, and I would invite the member opposite to make that commitment today on behalf of his party.
Honorable député de Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte-Acton.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte-Acton. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I closely listened to my colleague's speech. For him, he seems to feel that pipelines are an element of Canadian identity and nation building. After neglecting the matter of identity for decades, now, because of the American problem, we need to define an identity, and apparently we need to build it around a pipeline. Apparently, the idea was to threaten Alberta's separatism, but then at the Premier's meeting, hold up the pipeline as a pan-Canadian nation-building plan. So if Quebec's criteria are not met, does he agree that the pipeline will not have to cross Quebec territory?
Madam Speaker, the question of pipelines are a question of logical pursuit of projects that make sense. Yes, the energy industry is part of the culture in my part of Canada. And I would expect all parts of Canada to understand the importance of this critical industry in our country and support those industries as part of not just a way of life, but as a common sense method of funding, financing, and powering the best interests of all Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Calgary Crowfoot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I welcome the member for Signal Hill to this House. He is another Calgary MP. Great to see him here. I share his thanks to his predecessor, Ron Leipert, a good friend and known to all of us here in this House. We wish him the best in retirement. He spoke in response to the last question. I think I'd like to give him a little more time to fully explain some of the points that he might want to make there, that it's not just because in his riding and mine that the oil and gas industry, the energy industry supplies high-paying, good jobs and careers that support families, but this industry supports the entire country. It's the biggest industry in this country and it's where the revenue comes from to fund public services in every province. And does he agree, and does he have anything else to add on this important industry?
The honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my friend. There's no question at all that the petroleum industry centered in Alberta, really, indeed in Calgary, in the fine city of Calgary, my friend's riding and mine, part of that, is central to the Canadian economy, supplying not just jobs and opportunities in our province, but indeed across Canada. Manufacturers in Ontario, in Quebec, and in other provinces that take part in our industry. It's central. It's a central financial contribution, and its importance cannot be ignored and put on the shelf, which has been a long-standing tradition in the federal government under the Liberal Party, and it's something that has to change. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Fredericton.